Today's topic will be about my rejection of happiness. Why is today's topic called my rejection of happiness? Well, because I sat down with myself for a while and I kept going through all the activities as I mentioned in the last video, and then some new ones that I had actually started engaging in to somewhat wring out more happiness from my life, experience more happiness from my life. And there was one activity that I did engage in and I was happy afterwards. But then I would keep engaging after again because I don't know. So I started pondering on it. I started thinking, I was like, if what I'm looking for is happiness, and when I did this thing, I was happy during and after, then why not I just go back and do it again? Why don't I incorporate it in my life? Like, okay, every day between the hours of this and that, I will do this. It's that simple. And then something occurred to me, and it was that I was certain, I was sure, yes, I would be happy if I did this. So there was no going around it, there was no escape from it. I would stay in the zone of happiness for a really long time if I engage in that activity. So I thought, if it's the certainty of my being happy if I engage in this activity that is keeping me away from it, then doesn't that mean that I am habituated to being unhappy? How would I jump to this conclusion? Well, I've never really taken happiness seriously up until now. Up until I started this YouTube series on how to be happy. Before now, I just imagined, well, happiness was frivolous. If I got happy, it wouldn't last, it wouldn't matter, you know. Maybe somehow I even thought I could go by life without actually ever being happy. But it was just until now that it's really because the burden of being this unhappy soul was just too great, it was too immense. And I saw how it was just a losing game, it was stupid, it was ridiculous. I mean, just to step up a little, not to really go along, just to step up a little, I will need to work, I will need to rouse up a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, at least a lot of strength initially. This is not the momentum to keep going, this is just a motivation to start. And because the mode I've been operating from is one of being unhappy, taking that as, the obvious route. Obviously, I'll be sad, I'll be miserable, things will not be going my way, and all that stuff. Now, coming to the point, to the crux of saying, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to be happy. It's going to be difficult because I'm challenging the very foundations, the very things, the very traditions that I have been upholding up until this point. And that's what makes me realize happiness is a choice, and on the other side of it, unhappiness is a choice. So essentially, happiness is a choice, unhappiness is a choice. Like a sheet of paper. One side is happiness, the other side is unhappiness. You can't choose which side of the paper you write on. How do I figure this out? I figure this because if it's something that I like doing, that I'm happy doing, and I know this for a fact that if I did do it, I would be happy, and yet I desist from it, I stop it, I do not do it, then I'm choosing not to be happy. And if up until this point, what I've been doing has been things that have made me unhappy, miserable, sad, and lonely, and now it seems I'm trying to go against it, then that shows that up until this point, I've been choosing unhappiness. And then, obviously, with all this, when I'm choosing unhappiness, I've gone against happiness. I find happiness hard. I find it difficult. I know what to do to be happy, but my habituation, the thing that my comfort zone, essentially, the place where I'm most comfortable in, that I can fit in, that I'm used to, that I'm familiar with, is unhappiness. So, how does all this feel? Like, why are you choosing unhappiness, or why do you think, or why does it come easy? Well, if I were to point a finger, or at least maybe not the thing that's setting me on this path of, what, I'll just be unhappy and it doesn't matter, but at least the thing that kept me on that path, like, this is right, this is okay, I would say it was society. This is not some kind of, let's all blame society, lay it on them kind of. This is about the things you hear concerning happiness itself. You hear of a hedonic treadmill. No matter what you get, soon it will just be meh. And also, no matter how terrible things happen, soon it too will just be meh. You hear of money can't buy happiness. You hear of pursuit of happiness over the happiness of pursuit. You hear all these things, and in a way, they let you imagine that even if you want to become happy, it wouldn't last. And secondly, that somehow chasing happiness actually chases happiness away, so that it's like the closer you get to it, the farther it goes. So it's not necessary that they are telling you to be unhappy. It's just they are telling you that happiness is difficult, it's ephemeral. The thing just comes and goes. It's got a mind of its own. The best you can do is just live and hope you get some, little tidbits of happiness here and there. Otherwise, that's it. Now, when you just suppose this idea of natural happiness, that just pops in and pops out when it feels like it, with unnatural happiness that has you actively pursuing things that makes you happy, then it becomes this kind of, so you are saying that society is lying about happiness being something that cannot be gotten if you seek it out. And then you don't want to prove society wrong. You don't want to go against what society has said. You want happiness to be the thing that you just sit back and relax and wait for it to happen. You want happiness to be the kind of thing that if you had enough money, you could buy it. You want happiness to be the kind of thing that shows up unannounced, and then you're like the best person in your life, just keeps going up and up from then on. But a lot of things don't happen that way. You aren't just healthy, just poof, healthy. You aren't just, alive, poof, you're alive. You aren't just happy either. If you decide you're no longer going to take a morsel of food again, and that's just it. You're not going to stay at most a week, even maybe 2 weeks before you eventually, die. Same thing with maybe if you decided, well, I'm going to start, walking to work and back from work, start eating, fresh fruits, cut out sugar completely. All these things aren't just going to just be this outer, they are going to have an effect in your life. So the person who's cutting out sugar and walking to work, walking back from work, eating whole foods, the person is going to be healthy, obviously. So if health is not a given, it doesn't just happen. If health is something that you work up towards by the actions you take, if even life itself is something that you sustain, that you decide every day, I'm going to eat something, I'm going to get up, I'm going to, wash my hands, I'm going to take my bath, I'm going to do things that will sustain the life I already have, even though you are not actively thinking, yes, I'm going to do all these things, but at least passively, you're engaging in these acts that sustain life, that help you not be run over with bacteria and viral. So if you're doing all these things, then why can't happiness also be a choice, something that you decide, I'm going to have it or I'm not going to have it, instead of if I have it, I have it, if I don't, I don't. It's almost like intentionally society has made us believe that happiness is this difficult thing, that if you get is luck, it's chance, and if you don't, everything else nobody looks at. Does anybody somehow make it out as though if you have a degree, it's chance, if you have a job, it's chance, if you have a career, it's chance, if you get A in a subject, it's chance, if you're married, it's also chance. No, none of these things are seen as if you keep pursuing them, then you fly away or some nonsense like that. But when it comes down to happiness, everybody is trying to tell you, don't chase happiness, do this set of things, then happiness will follow. I mean, Jesus. Like hopefully, maybe if you spend more time with family, then you'll be happy. Maybe if you have more connections in your community, then you'll be happy. Maybe if you eat healthier, then you'll be happy. Maybe, pursue these things, happiness will come on its own. Like some kind of cats you have to coax out of the, like underneath the furniture. Now, come on, kitty, come on, don't chase it, or just bring a bowl of milk, and then like, you want this, right? So in the instance, in this allegory now, the bowl of milk essentially is hanging out with family and all that shit. What if your family doesn't want to hang out with you? What if you have no connections in the community? What if your community is not the kind of community that wants to connect with people? What if they just want anonymity? They want you to just mind your fucking business. I guess we'll be unhappy then, That is what I'm going up against in a way. I'm trying to lay down some sort of framework. Fuck waiting for happiness to fall down. Fuck waiting for something to happen and then your life will have meaning. That's why I'm making this series on how to be happy without breaking the bank. Because I'm sick of all this nonsense. Like no more. Just hope that what you're doing will make you happy. I want certainty. I want to be sure. And maybe I'm not used to being happy. Maybe I'm not comfortable being elated. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't care. If I keep staying in the comfort zone of being, look at, it drains your energy, keeps you down. What for? For it to be fucking miserable. You're already miserable anyways. So, yeah, that's why I'm making this series. That's why I'm making it. That's why it's there. And I myself, I'll engage in it. This is not something I'm plucking out of thin air. This is something I'm actively experiencing. I'm actively involved in. So this was just a short one, just to like some kind of comma, when you're writing, put comma, like some kind of comma in the work, So episode 3 will be coming out soon, and that one will continue on the path of the things that I have done, that I have seen, has made me not through the roof, but at least a little bit more content, more happy, more, let's say, a sense of well-being, has enveloped me as a result of, at least maybe nothing, just tiny, a little bit. Now this talk about death by 1,000 cuts. This one is like life by 1,000. I don't know what you put there, but that's what this is. It's just tiny little things that add up. Not spectacular, but it's real. So see you in episode 3.